everyone, welcome back to Real Reds Talk, an authentic football fan channel dedicated to Manchester United. Today we have an absolute, I have an absolute banger of a show today. I'm going to discuss two of the world's top strikers currently, Harry Kane and Victor Osimhen, going head-to-head in a Real Red battle. In the blue corner, we have Harry Kane, 30 years old, England captain, trophyless, but he is a bagsman, a consistent bagsman, which is very important to note. In the red corner, we have Victor Osimhen, 24 years old, Nigerian international, soon-to-be Serie A champion, and maybe, I don't know what Maven is, maybe a little bit more if Napoli, surprise a couple of teams, maybe in the Champions League. So, yeah, Napoli looking really good at the minute, and Victor Osimhen's a big part of that, as well as the other winger who, I don't even want to try and pronounce his name. His name's an absolute madness, if we're being completely honest. I've just noticed on the graphic on YouTube, I look like a floating head. So what I'm going to do is, so I don't look like a floating head, I'm going to move this back a little bit. So we've got a bit of, do you know what I mean? Just so we can sort that out. And it's not just my head talking then, because it looked a bit like AI there. You know what I'm saying? A bit of AI generated content. Anyway. Yeah, look, the overall thing today is, guys, basically I'm just going to give you an overall deep-rooted evaluation of both strikers so you can go away from this, maybe have a bit more clarity in your decision as to who you want for the striker. Maybe you've already made your mind up. And you've said, I don't care what this geezer says today. I don't care what anybody else says. I want this guy, and that's absolutely fine. A lot of people have, but there's still a lot of time before summer yet. Maybe some other targets will come into the mix. You know, you talk about Gonçalo Ramos. You talk about other ones that have been in the mix. Sesko, Vlahovic, Kudos. There's been a few names, but the two main names at the minute, the hot topics are Harry Kane and Osimhen, and they're both in mega goal-scoring form. So I'm going to start with Harry Kane, and I'm going to get into the stats towards the end of the show, so make sure you stick around for that, because there's some very interesting stats. I've done a really good deep dive. Not the boring ones, just the ones you want. That's what we want, right? So, yeah, he's got, obviously, a fantastic, prolific goal-scoring record. Harry Kane, great ability to link up play with his teammates. He's a complete striker who can score goals, create chances, and play with his back to goal. He's an excellent finisher in the box. He can score from both inside and outside the penalty, as demonstrated against Arsenal. I'm sure many Arsenal fans will remember that. I'm pretty sure he's got the record for the North London derbies as well, which is obviously another feather in his cap. He's good at creating chances for himself and his teammates, using his strength and skill to beat defenders. He's very gifted when it comes to the passing department, and he's known for his tireless work rate. Now, listening to all that, a lot of people may be like, well, we watch him in the Premier League, so I know. So more people are going to be affiliated with, or they're going to know more about Harry Kane than they are Victor Osimhen, and I appreciate that. But there's some people, who might be watching from abroad, might be watching in Africa, in other places, who haven't watched him more than they've watched Osimhen, for example. So it's important to provide balanced perspective here. But yeah, like I just said, that little last bit, works tirelessly for his team. He's great at dropping deep and playing other forwards in behind. That fits in with the kind of Ten Hag category for me. And there's not many guarantees in the Premier League, especially when it comes to scoring goals consistently, because it's such a tough league. The toughest league in the world, by the way. So, yeah, extremely hard to put up that consistency over the number of years that Harry Kane's done it, and he has done it. He is the horse that you bet on. And when people are kind of talking in math, they're coming up with this narrative of United plus Kane equals a title. And I'm going to give my thoughts on that in a second, because, again, that's another one where you hear it first, you're like, oh, yeah, maybe. But, let's just have a think about that for a second. I'll put that aside, and we'll go back to it in a second. His goal-scoring record, insane, unbelievable. 17 plus in the league alone for the past 10 years. So since 2014-15, when he really, started revving his boots and started going and started his dominance, which is essentially he's been doing as a striker. 17 plus league goals alone for the past 10 years. Overall, again, this is something I'm going to dive into later as well, but overall he scored 298 games in 504 games, which took former player Wayne Rooney an extra 250 games to replicate a similar kind of record. Now, I'm not saying Kane's better than Rooney because of that, but I'm just saying it shows how great that achievement is by him doing that in 250 less games or whatever it is, for example. And I know Rooney dropped deeper towards the end of his career and didn't really play as a number 9, really, unless it was like the 2009 campaign, I think it was. Maybe he did it for 2 seasons, but apart from that, he was more, as a 10 or a second striker. Or do you know what I mean? Like he kind of filled all around. But Kane does a similar thing as well. Kane drops all over the pitch. You'll see him in many different areas. So it's full credit to Harry Kane at the minute. And if you look at the situation that's going on at Spurs at the moment, Conte is on his way out. He is on his way out. Anyone who saw that interview, it was an absolute madness what he'd done in that interview. Coming out, I mean, a lot of people probably listened to it, including Spurs fans, and he was like, "Well, he's not lying. He's telling the truth. He's not, he's not talking shit." A lot of stuff he's saying, there was credit to it. He's like, they've been doing this for years. They do bottle things essentially. They were hiding. They didn't show themselves. Didn't show true spirit, true fighting spirit for each other in the team. So obviously his comments have got him into trouble. Conte probably knew this at the time. He's probably already mapped his way out back to Italy or wherever it is he's considering on going. Spurs will win nothing this season in terms of trophies unless they have an absolute turnaround. I don't know if it's mathematically possible for him to win it, the Premier League. But let's be honest, they're not going to win the Premier League. Unfortunately, the rivals Arsenal are looking like they're going to win the Premier League. They went out of the Champions League to AC Milan, and he still hasn't won a trophy with him. Harry Kane still hasn't won a trophy with Spurs. And a player of his talent, if he finishes his career with no trophies at all, that is just a shame on football and society. It really is. And he will always have that asterisk next to his name in the history books. People always look back and says, yeah, fantastic player, but never won anything. Didn't even win a League Cup, which Vegas has just done. Do you know what I mean? Like, which many other players have done who are nowhere near the caliber that Harry Kane is. So that is something that certainly I think will be in the back of his mind. He will know this. He's not getting any younger. He's 30 years old, as I touched on before. So it's something to, it must be playing on his mind. He obviously had that situation where he tried moving to City. Didn't quite come to fruition due to reasons I'm going to touch on again with Daniel Levy. So it's like the boat's there now. The boat was there with City. Now it's gone a bit further along, and you're like, right, this might be the last kind of big move that we get, the last kind of, big push. And you can stay in the Premier League at the same time as well to complete your goal scoring record and beat Alan Shearer, which is an extra incentive. Because Bayern Munich have always been kind of sniffing around and looking at him and saying, like, we really like this player, but I think they're more looking at the free market in January. So they can, take him on then and basically sign a pre-contract, can't he, with any club. So the boat for Premier League teams is like here at the minute. You let this summer go, it could pass. Have we got any comments in the chat? Let's just have a quick look. There is a poll if you want to answer that, Harry Kane or Victor Osimhen. You're more than welcome to. I'm interested to get people's thoughts. And yeah, smash a like on the video as I keep going through this head-to-head. Let me just get a quick swig of me drink. Oh, so, after everything I've just mentioned there, a lot of people might be questioning, what's the problem then? Everything you mentioned there sounds absolutely fire. Great goal scorer, great at linking up, had a consistent record for the past 10 years. England's captain, fantastic player. What is the problem? Should be a perfect fit, should be easy. United are on an upwards trajectory at the minute. We won a trophy this season. So the proof is in the pudding. And Erik ten Hag has an exciting project to offer. So what's the problem? One thing or person, should I say, that kind of pulls all this positivity traffic to an absolute standstill is Mr. Daniel Levy. He will not want to sell his prized asset, as we saw with the whole debacle with Man City, like I said before, 150 million, blah, blah, blah. He just wouldn't budge on his price tag at all. Now, granted, Kane has a year left, so you think that might knock it down, especially, if they don't get Champions League. If Spurs end up in the Europa League, and then you've got Kane going into his last year of his contract, you would think that, yeah, you'll get him for cheaper then. Because they'll need the money maybe a little bit more. They've got stadium to pay for. You would think. But Daniel Levy is to say stubborn is probably an understatement when it comes to business and negotiating. He's extremely stubborn. And the figures that have been thrown around, I put a video out today on the Instagram where the figures that are being mentioned are £100 million. And a lot of people have been comparing this, not the money that's been spent, but the signing in itself like I said before, United plus Kane equals title. That's what a lot of people are saying. And a lot of people comparing this to Van Persie when he signed. And he, like Kane, was obviously the finished article, the full package. You knew what you was going to get with him. Absolute killer in the box. Now, in the same summer, that summer when we signed Van Persie, we bought Shinji Kagawa, we bought Butler, Nick Powell, and I think a young player, Angelo Enriquez, I think it was. None who really had a mainstay in that kind of squad. There was all kind of, well, Nick Powell and Henriquez was kind of fringe players. Kagawa was all right. He had bits, but he was much better for Dortmund. But Van Persie was the main one who was like, right, he is the important ingredient that's going to elevate that squad to the next level. And I know we talk about the title and you know, it was an aging squad and it's probably not in the top caliber of teams, of winning teams, should I say, who have won the Premier League title. If you ignore Van Persie's 26 league goals, United conceded 43 goals in 38 games. They also lost 3 at home in that campaign in 2012 to 2011 and had the joint worst number of the 3 at home was the joint worst number of any side to win the Premier League. So that's something to consider. But they did win the title with 89 points and it was 11 clear of Man City. You bring that to our campaign now, currently. Again, keep this narrative in mind that if you bring Kane to United, he's going to win, you know, we'll win the title. Just keep that in mind. We're currently 19 points behind Arsenal. 2 games in hand. The season before Van Persie signed, we lost the league on goal difference to Man City. I think you all remember the famous moment. So the narrative that if Kane signs, we can compete for a title, for me personally, I don't see it at all, if I'm honest. I think we need at least another 2, 3, maybe even 4 players who really, really add quality. Not just fillers, not just bench warmers, not just these kind of guys, actual quality players. Then maybe we can compete for a title. Just a couple of comments I want to get into now, so just give me a second. So we've got Daniel Raj in the chat saying sad reality is that both are going to cost more than £100 million. Exactly. It's frightening, isn't it? The amount of money, and then how much you've got left to spend. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Joseph Jack saying Osimhen, very interested. Dave Lewis saying Kane suits Rashford, Garnacho more, but Osimhen suits Sancho and Anthony more. That's a very good point, Dave. I like that. To the point where we could see our best 11 not have Rashford in it, which is mad. I'm happy with either of them. Again, that's another fair. Yeah, I think that's another very fair shout. FIFA World Cup status saying any good striker available for less than £80 million. Well, that it feels weird saying, well, 80 million is kind of shopping in bargain basement. It's not, because £80 million is a lot of fucking money, and there is strikers out there, but it's the less you spend, in essence, the more of a risk it becomes. You know, if you want to go for, I believe Sesko, for example, who's at RB Leipzig, right? And he's been at, he was at Leipzig, but I think he's been sold to Salzburg or the other way around. The Red Bulls have been trading anyway. That's what's been going on. Let me just get a quick drink. Well, Sesko would probably cost you 50, 60 million. But Sesko, very rough around, very talented, but very rough around the edges. Might not be ready for the Premier League. Might take a couple of years to bed in. What do you want? Do you want a player to come in and start hitting the ground running? Can you get players that are less than £50 million that can just do that and hit the ground running? With Ten Hag, I would suggest you probably could, because he has this kind of knack for buying players for relatively cheap and they end up doing really well. Look at Sebastian Haller at Ajax, a prime example, who flopped at West Ham and then was unbelievable for Ajax. He brought Dusan Tadic in, who wasn't amazing in the Premier League when he was there, wasn't a standout player, but when he went to Ajax, he was. I know it's a lesser league in a sense. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but you get the contrast from Premier League to think it is. But they were still performing, in the Champions League at the Bernabeu. Tadic had a wonderful performance. Haaland, Haller was top goal scorer in the group stages. Like, he can nurture players really well, and he can get the best out of them. And I think you've seen that with Rashford. I think you've seen that with Luke Shaw. I think you've seen that with Wan-Bissaka. You've seen it with a lot of players in our squad, a lot of them. McTominay at times as well, which is just crazy to think. So I can't remember why I went, oh yeah, any good striker under 80 million. That was my initial point, sorry. There will be. I believe Gonçalo Ramos, I know he's got I think he's got a release clause of 100 million euros or something like that. But his actual price, I don't know if you can haggle that down. I don't know, because Enzo Fernandez, of course, was 100 million on it, and he just wouldn't budge on that. But Chelsea were trying to lowball him a little bit. So it depends on the club's financial circumstance. But the main ones that are being considered are all 18 million north, basically. So how much money, realistically, would you have left to spend if we threw £100 million at Kane for the summer? Judging off financial fair play rules, you take the wages into consideration. If we get Champions League qualification as well, and if we sell well, we might have 150 to 200 million spend, roughly. You spend 100 million on Kane or 120 million on Osimhen, you've not got much room left to manoeuvre, even if you do sell a Maguire and McTominay. His age also is a factor to consider, of course, because if he can come in and do what Casemiro done for us, I don't think anyone would disagree. Yeah, get him right now, because the impact that Casemiro's had on this team has been sensational. And I don't think it'd be hard to find a United fan out there that would disagree with that. Casemiro has been sensational. So if Kane has that impact and could do it for a good number of years, would you complain with that? Because I wouldn't personally. That's just the question of how many years will you get out of him before you have to go fork another £100 million out for another striker? That's the question that I'm kind of. That's why I'm still sat on the fence a little bit. Dan Raj just sent in a super chat. Thank you very much for that. If you want to send a super chat, you can do that by clicking the little box with a $sign. Saying with Qatar, asking price for players will rise. Well, that's what I mean. Surely the owners of the other clubs, the president of Napoli, the president of Spurs will be looking at the landscape and they'll be thinking, you know what, if Qatar come in, they're going to want to make a big impact, which means they're willing to spend big as well. So that's a fantastic point from Dan. What's the point of negotiating now? Because you just be like, well, no. If Spurs, think about it realistically, right? If you're Daniel Levy, you push and push and push United until the end of the summer when they've gone all out for the Kane, like they did with Frenkie de Jong for Barcelona. They absolutely push it to the point where Spurs are just stringing them along, and now they're desperate now. Gets to the end of the window, and they end up spending stupid money like they did on Antony, for example, overpaying enormously. A similar situation could happen with Kane, where there's ties long, and then it's like, right, 100 mil or nothing. In fact, 110 million now, or you're not getting him, because then we've got to go find a replacement. We've got to go do this. Like, he's our captain. He's this. He's that. He's that. So it makes it difficult. And if Qatar come in, they're going to drive that price right up. They are going to drive that price right up. Vincent Bullock's in the chat saying hi. I have blood cold. Is that a bloody cold? I'm guessing. I hope you recover well. Anyway, get some Lemsip down you. Bit of Lemsip, bit of it, or Beecham's. Some people prefer Beecham's. Bit of honey and lemon, hot water, and you'll be right. It's international break, so I would say watch some football, but you can't. It's just England, in it. So if you enjoy watching England, then maybe you might be all right. But we're a little bit stuck for football this week, aren't we, in terms of United content? We need to stop Liverpool and Man City getting the runs on Bellingham. He's too good for them. Well, if you've seen the news reports recently, I don't think Liverpool are out of the race for Bellingham from everything that I saw. Apparently, they've got the financials to compete. They might not even be in the Champions League. Yeah, it's all going off at Liverpool at the minute. FSG are putting out this kind of statement that they can't overspend. They can't do this. They can't do that. So, yeah, I never saw, every time I saw Bellingham linked with Liverpool, I'll get onto Victor Osimhen in a minute. I'm not going too far away from this, but just because Vincent put that comment in, every time I saw Bellingham go to Liverpool, I'm never like, I don't get it. I like, if City and Madrid go in for him, I feel like he'd go there in a heartbeat. I think if Pep wants him, he'd go there. And I think if, whoever it is, the manager, I think Ancelotti might be going. Is he soon? Is this last season or something? So I think either team, he'd rather go either team, but we'll see how that develops, because it is an interesting story. How funny was it that the men and women both got, but Brighton in the FA Cup semi-finalists? Is that true? That's true. That's mental, isn't it? The men's and the women's teams both got Brighton in the semi-final. That is crazy. I'm not sure what the female Brighton team's looking like, but I don't mean in terms of I don't mean that way. Like, what do they look like? I mean, are they good players, or are they high in the league, or you know what I mean? I don't watch the football in the women's side too much, which I should watch more of, in fairness. And I am going to make an effort to watch more of it, because apparently they've got a nicely developing squad. So, again, not in that way, but you take my point. Now, going from Kane to the next one, this leads to the next player who isn't cheap either, by the way. We're speaking of figures, 100 million, 120 million, like outrageous fees. Victor Osimhen, 24 years old. Now, Osimhen's more of a explosive player, dangerous in the box, can score from any angle. He's known for pace, power, and finishing ability. And he's actually a really good presser as well, which obviously Ten Hag will be a massive fan of because that's what he wants from his players. He's useful in pinning defenders back, intercepting passes in the opponent's third, and he's having an absolute wonder season at Napoli at the minute. If you don't know about Victor Osimhen, you must be living under a rock at the minute because he is murdering it in terms of his goal scoring record. He is on fire. He's the hot topic. He's the hot striker at the minute. A lot of clubs will be in for him in the summer, and that is one to keep your eye on throughout the full summer because that is going to have twists and turns. I believe PSG might be looking for a striker. You know how much money they'll throw at it. Is that the same people who are throwing money? Is it coming from the same fund essentially from the Qatari state? Could be potentially. Again, I'm going to compare stats with Osimhen and Kane towards the end, so please do stick around for that because they're very close and very interesting. And viewers who haven't watched Osimhen a lot, trust me, this guy is exciting. Very exciting. He's not as creative as Kane, doesn't have a range of passing like Kane. That's one thing I'd say, but he's much quicker. Much quicker. If you think about Erling Haaland when he was at, well, even when he was at City, but Dortmund in particular, when they got a transition, I'm sure there was a clip of Haaland when he was like at the back, and within 6 seconds he was at the other end of the pitch. That's how quick Osimhen is. He's frightening, absolutely rapid. He's great for awareness as well around him, which you need from a striker. When we talk about recognition of space, Osimhen is very adept at recognizing, attacking, and creating space. Obviously, like I said, for a number 9, you kind of die for them instincts, don't you? I feel like this kind of a thing with like people talking about poachers like Lewandowski and these kind of Ronaldo and like poaching seems people think it's a dying art or it's more people are going for the false 9 and stuff like that. Whereas it's to have that instinct, you kind of almost can't train it. It's called a natural instinct for a reason. It's just in you. And a lot of these ones who, were never considered the most physical of athletes or the quickest, but you look at people like, I don't know, Ruud van Nistelrooy, absolute killer in the box, fantastic poacher, one of the best ones. Ronaldo when he became a striker, Lewandowski another one. Like, it is a hard trait to have. You can't really train it. You can train it to a certain extent, but it has to be within you. And you need this for a number 9. I was looking up before as well, Victor Osimhen. This is very interesting. His transfer to Napoli made him the most expensive African player to date. And you don't get that title for nothing. And I'm sure the Napoli president will be headlining the negotiations with that as well. When we have whoever it is doing negotiations now, I believe we've got someone new from Adidas. So it's not Matt Judge anymore. It's another guy. I can't remember his name. But he might be flying over with Richard Arnold and Murtaugh and becoming, the 3 Musketeers in the negotiating room. So when they fly over, you just know, don't you, that the guy's going to walk in with like a brass band with like a drum like that. And he's just going to be like, do, 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 do. And he's just going to have a big banner that says, most expensive African player ever. We're looking for £120 million North. Yeah. And he's going to just like lay that on and be like, we're not accepting anything less. Yeah. Let's have a look. What's Vincent saying? I believe the tickets go on sale. Don't know for the semi-final tomorrow, the same day. The bids are going in for the club. Very interesting. We've got 9 people watching, by the way, and we've had 14 votes on the poll. Let's check that out. So 57% have gone for Osimhen. 43% have gone for Kane. So very close. Literally 7% in it. But Osimhen's leading the race at the minute, which I think is very fascinating. I thought a lot of people might go more towards Kane, but fair enough. Anyway, back to Osimhen. A lot of people know Napoli are notoriously difficult to deal with in the negotiating room. If you think about when they held out for, I think it was I can't pronounce his name. He's got such a tongue-twisting name. Kalidou Koulibaly, when loads of teams were sniffing around, PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, around this gigantic centre-back who looked very impressive, and he was pushing for 90, £100 million again. And this was a good few years ago, which is essentially why we ended up going to get Harry Maguire. We ended up signing Maguire because I think Jose Mourinho was talks when he wanted a centre back, he wanted either Maguire or Koulibaly, and I think there was a couple of his names that were mentioned. But obviously Mourinho got sacked. Ollie came in and he was like, I like the look of Harry. Come here, Barry. Get on side. You're going to be captain within 6 months, and the rest is history. I don't need to speak about Maguire too much because we know the situation. So yeah, we ended up getting Maguire, and then Koulibaly stayed at Napoli for a couple more years, and then Chelsea bought him. but they still managed to get £35 million when he was 31 years old with 1 year left on his contract. And I'm just like, scratching my head, like, that's still very good business. Very, very good business. I know he's not exactly worked out for Chelsea and he's not been amazing, but if you just look at the caliber of player that you're bringing in, plus you consider longevity, you look at how Thiago Silva's been for Chelsea as well. I don't know, I just bopped that, so apologies for that. I just bopped it again. You look at Thiago Silva, was that 38, 37, still one of the top performing centre-backs in the league. They was probably looking at thinking, yeah, we can still get another 5 years out of Koulibaly, but he's not exactly been too great at Chelsea. That's the issue. But 31 years old, 1 year left in your contract, and you get that amount of money, just shows the nature of this kind of president, what we're dealing with. I wish I knew his name. I should have looked up his name, to be honest. But both presidents are going to make the situation really difficult. These players having, huge price tags being slapped on the head, it makes it just, difficult to deal with stubborn businessmen. So whichever way you go, you decide Kane, you decide Koulibaly, you're looking at 100 million, probably 100 million north. Like, even if Kane's got a year left, that's how I see it going. Because the way Daniel Levy look at it as well is like, we'll sell you him, but you damn right it's going to be a premium because it's going to a direct competitor. It's going to someone who we're competing with for top four. So giving you Harry Kane is only going to rocket you right up that league. So we're going to have to want some, some pay for that. It's a difficult one. Do you pay a bit extra for longevity, or do you pay a premium price for guaranteed gold, but may not be around as long? You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of variables when you look at the striker situation. And you know what? I'm still on the fence about it. So let's try get into some statistics, shall we, to try sway maybe people a little bit more. And yeah, we'll see what people think. Chivier making a great point, saying Napoli paid £70 million for Osimhen. They will demand at least 130 for a minimum. That's the point. That's a lot of fucking money, innit? A lot of money. They've invested a lot of money, so they're going to want nearly a double in return for one of the hottest strikers on the planet at the moment, aren't they? So then how much money have you got left if you spend 130 million? Realistically, like, wow. That is a lot. You're getting towards like Mbappe territory there with that kind of money. That is a lot of fucking money. And he's not, with it being Serie A, I hate to bring this up a lot, but the figures don't always necessarily translate. We talked about this on the show last week. I think there's been a couple of players who come over from the Italian league have done really well. You look at Zola, Bergkamp, Henry, Juventus, Sampdoria, and Inter Milan. I think they came from, and then you got other players who have just absolutely flopped. There's a long, long list of them who've been really, really bad. So 130 million is a high risk. He's clearly a talented player. I'm not saying he won't work out, and I'm not saying he won't be good, because he seems to have the right qualities to succeed for a Premier League. Strong, quick, great poacher, can play with his back to goal. He'll have quality around him. You put Victor Osimhen in the mix with Anthony, Rashford, Casemiro, Eriksen, Bruno Fernandes. If he's scoring this many goals with Napoli at the minute, imagine how many goals he'll score in the United team as well, with the amount of creativity he's got around him. Like, he could be a superstar, but there's always that kind of lingering risk with it, especially with the big price tag. So it's a big call to make, because if you go get him and it doesn't quite work out, and you've got £130 million striker sat on the bench who's struggling a little bit, that's pressure. That is pressure. Big pressure. Vincent's saying, get Harry Kane. You're getting goals in the Premier League, but not in the Champions League, because, as you say, it's hard to. But Osimhen will get your goals in the Champions League very easy. But I don't think Kane's done relatively bad in the Champions League. It's just Spurs bottling it in the Champions League. I think Kane scores wherever, to be honest. I think you put him in fucking a five-a-side under-11s team, and obviously he'd bag a lot, but you take my point. You put him anywhere, and he will score goals. He's just that type of striker. And you put him into United, elevate even more, in my opinion, likewise. So, yeah, let's take a look at the stats anyway. So I was looking before. In all competitions so far, Harry Kane has played this season 39 games. He's got 23 goals and 4 assists. Osimhen has played 10 less games, 29 games, 25 goals and 5 assists. So he's got a better record in all comps. Now, again, there's variables with this. People might say, what about the Premier League? The Premier League's tougher, blah, blah, blah. You play tougher games. I get it. I understand that. You can talk about all the other variables as much as you want. I'm just offering you the pure statistical facts here. Overall, you talk about longevity and what they've been doing over the career. Obviously, Kane's been doing it a lot longer. He's 30 years old. Osimhen's 24, but you can still get a percentage ratio off both. Excuse me again. Harry Kane, 504 games, 298 goals, 79 assists. In total, 377 goal involvements. 75% of his games he's assisted or scored. Phenomenal record. Unbelievable. Will injuries catch up with him? That's another question I want to kind of float separately out there, because he has had a lot of fucking ankle injuries, knee injuries. He's received a lot, and obviously naturally in attacking areas you do get, that crunch quite a lot. I know he looks after himself, but when does that start catching up with you? Do you get to 31, 32 and you need to start going, help me, help me? It's, I don't know. It's another thing to consider. Overall, in all competitions for Victor Osimhen, 180 games, 91 goals, 24 assists. So 115 goal involvements in 180 games. So Osimhen's is roughly 64% is scored or assisted or gotten a goal involvement, basically, in that amount of time frame. He's still a little bit. It's not. It's weird to call him raw because he scored like fucking 20 odd goals this season. But he's still young. Do you know what I mean? He's still developing. He's not technically in his prime yet. So if this isn't his prime, and he can still improve, that's scary as well. And he can replicate it in the Premier League, I will take him. Give me Victor Osimhen. But tell me, would you take Victor Osimhen and then get one more player in the window and you'd be happy with that? Or would you go get Kane and you've got a little bit more wiggle room maybe to get another two player, maybe to get Sabitzer and someone else? That's the decision. But I suppose it all depends on financial fair play as well, doesn't it? That's the tricky thing. Ryan Edwards saying Kane needs legs around him. He would fit well in Chelsea. But the thing is with Kane, it's the London clubs, innit? I don't think he'd go to Arsenal. I don't think he'd go to Chelsea. City have got Haaland. Liverpool have got Nunes. Arsenal have got Nketiah and well, Arsenal won't go to anyway because obvious reasons that I've just said. So the only obvious one is Manchester United. And then Bayern Munich are looking at him as well. There's always been that link with, and I think if he went Bayern Munich, he'd win trophies. So if he wasn't so asked about his record in the Premier League, he'd probably go to Bayern Munich because you're like, right, look at Mane. Mane's gone. Mane's a fantastic player anyway, but Mane's gone there and done really well. They're looking a bit better now, Bayern Munich. They've obviously blasted PSG out of the Champions League. They could be, I think they've got City in the next round. That could be an interesting tie to knock City out. They could go on to be successful. And you only add more to that with Harry Kane in your team as well. So I think this summer, if Harry Kane doesn't move to United, I think he becomes a free agent. Well, I think he can sign a pre-contract in January, and I think he discusses it with Bayern Munich, and I think he goes there. If he signs for someone in the summer, I put money on it there be Manchester United. But I wouldn't overpay for him. If we can get Harry Kane, you know what, right? I'm just going to call it out right now because I've been on the fence about this recently. If we can sign Harry Kane for 75 million, I'll take him. If you're saying to me, Victor Osimhen, 130 mil, or Harry Kane, 75, give me Harry Kane all day. The price is a sticking point with me. £100 million for a 30-year-old is a lot. Who's got a year left on his contract. It's a lot of money. Yes, he'd do well, but it's so much it's similar to I look at other players around. I just feel like this is kind of Harry Kane's gold. Don't get me wrong, but this English tax with players, Maguire, Declan Rice, you pay a premium, and you pay an extra premium when it's a direct competitor, as I touched on before. So I don't want to pay that much more. I want wiggle room. In an ideal world, put it in the comment section because I want to know. We've got 8 people in the chat. Your ideal 3 transfers for the summer. So if I've got 200 million to spend, let's say, I would go Harry Kane for, let's say, 80 million pounds for argument's sake. I'd go Frenkie de Jong for 70 million pound. Then I would go, you know what? I might relook Timber. And I know he hasn't had the greatest. He's not been as good as he was under Ten Hag, and there's reason for that because the guy who replaced Ten Hag at Ajax, Schroeder, I think his name is, did shit and got sacked. Now they've got a new manager. I'm not sure how it's getting on there now, but I just trust in Ten Hag's judgment. Don't forget, before the Sandro Martinez, he wanted Timber. I'm glad we got Leacher because he's one of my favourite players. I absolutely adore him. And I mentioned him in the scouting thing before we even was talking about him. So I'm absolutely buzzing over the moon that we got him, but we was linked with Timber initially. So if Maguire goes, could you then bring in a Timber for a similar price? How much is he going to cost? Are Ajax, throwing the toys out the pram because of the way the negotiating's been? It's interesting. I'll go, just for now, people might disagree, but I'll go Harry Kane, Frenkie de Jong, and Jurrien Timber. That's the way I'd go. And then maybe you've got a little bit of room for Sabitzer. Let's sign Sabitzer on a permanent. Timber, de Jong, Kane. I think I'd be all right. I think I'd be happy with that summer, to be honest. Vincent's saying Osimhen, Bellingham, and Timber. That's a lot of money. I think Osimhen and Bellingham are costing you £250 million just alone, just them two. Maybe even more, depending on how much Dortmund are going to push the price up and depending on how many people are in the mix for it. Let's have a look. TS7, big up Tommy. Absolute legend. Don't buy many young strikers, it does my head in. Yeah, it's a very good point. It's a valid point that you make. You look at past 10 years, Falcao, Igalo, Ibrahimovic, Cavani, Ronaldo, just to name a few. We don't. So maybe it's time to change that path up. Maybe it is time to go down that path where we need a striker for the next 8 years. I was gutted. Look, I cannot lie. I was absolutely gutted when Liverpool signed Núñez because I still think he's a good player. I still think he's going to be lethal. You look at his XG and what he's capable of. Now, people might throw the Werner narrative out there and say, well, Werner could have scored this, but I think there is a player in there. And I think next season I think Darwin Núñez have bad goals for Liverpool, especially if they can sort out that midfield and the supply line. Haaland as well. Look at Haaland. Look at Erling Haaland for City. City don't even City are a fucking tin pot club. They do not deserve Erling Haaland. If you put Haaland in our team now, he's just an absolute robot of a goal scoring human being. He's mental. He's absolutely mental. So why are we not going for these profilers? How old's Haaland? Is he 23 or something? I'm sure Darwin Núñez is a similar age as well. It's crazy. We need someone like that. We do. And then now you're pulling me back a little bit because I was like, right, Kane, 80 million, I'll have it. And now I'm like, well, no, because we need, what we're going to do in 2-3 years' time when Kane starts to decline. I didn't even mean that to rhyme. What are you going to do in 2 years' time when Kane starts to decline? I didn't even mean to rhyme. Wow. Musical genius popping out of me there. What are you going to do? No, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, Tommy made a great point about strikers there. Let's have a read a couple more comments. Thank you for getting all your chats in. Shah Sam says Osimhen has resale value in case it doesn't go as expected. But if it doesn't go as expected, how much does his value drop? Does it drop back down to 70 million and then you still lose out on 60? And then, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I take your point, resale is great because you're probably not going to get that with Harry Kane. You're probably going to get 10, 20 million on a resale, maybe a little bit more. But again, another great point is some very smart people in the chat today. Edward saying better to just stick Rashford up front. He wants to be a number 9 anyway. Oh, it's a difficult one. I take your point, but Rashford can play there and he can do a job there, I think, against a team who plays a high line. So when we played Arsenal and when we played Liverpool and teams like that, he can be a threat and he can be a damage. Teams who want possession, they want to push up the full team up, there's space in behind to exploit. He can do a job there. I don't think he can do a job there, in I don't know. Like you've got a team who not low block you, but are more defensively sound, and the very compact organ, like a Newcastle, let's say. Like Rashford as a striker against Newcastle, I don't think would work. So you need a striker who's capable of mixing it up, a bit hybrid. And I think Kane can definitely do that. When Kane drops deep for Tottenham and you got Son running in behind and you've got other players like that, he complements so many players around him. And Osimhen can do it to a certain extent, not as good as Kane, but Osimhen's got a really good first touch, and his football intelligence is quite good. So that's something to consider with Marcus Rashford. Whereas Rashford can't really do that, to be honest. He's more just a pace, not a pace merchant, that's harsh, but he's more of a runner in behind. And that's his threat. That's his, what he's good at. Vincent again saying London, such a nice place to visit, too overpriced, and I wouldn't want to live there. So we've had a geographical update from Vincent on London, very expensive. And the poll now has gone a bit more in Osimhen's favour. So we've got 61% for Osimhen and 39% for Harry Kane. I like that. Yeah, let me know what you in the comment section you'd go for and why. Very important. Drop us a DM on Instagram if you want as well. We're always happy to talk. Like I said, I'm on the fence. I'm changing my mind every single week. If you can give me Kane for £80 million, I'll take it. But who do you think Ten Hag wants? If you put Ten Hag in a room now, you put a pistol to his head, which I hope no one ever does because I love him. But if you put a pistol to his head and you said, Eric, you've got 2 strikers to choose from, regardless of the money, regardless of any circumstance, situation, you've got 2 strikers to choose from. Do you want Kane or do you want Osimhen? Guaranteed. Who do you think he says? I don't know. I really don't know. I think he might say Osimhen. But I don't know. I don't know Eric Ten Hag, which might surprise a lot of people, but obviously not. It's just fascinating heading into the summer, isn't it? Really, really fascinating. TS9, Osimhen, James Ward-Prowse, Mount, and Frimpong. Oh shit, that's an odd one. Mason Mount is a very divisive figure. I was speaking to Sam about this last night on the channel, and Sam was not having any of it at all. Doesn't rate Mason Mount. Thinks he's an average player. I think he's all right. I think he's good. I think Ten Hag would like him. He puts a big shift in for the team. He was Chelsea's top goal scorer 2 seasons ago, or last season, I think it was. He got like 10, 11 goals and then 10, 11 assists, so double figures in both parts. I think he contributes significantly. I don't mind him, but then where do you play Mount? You play him as an 8, as like a rotation as an 8. So then what happens with Sabitzer? Or do you play him as a 10? And then if he plays him at 10, Bruno Fernandes plays so many games. It's the lack of rotation there. And then do you play him on the wing? Who thought like it's again another load of variables with it. I suppose. Ward-Prowse is an interesting one. I don't know if I'd take Ward-Prowse. I think he's a bit of a set piece merchant, to be honest. But they are deadly set pieces, aren't they? If you've been, it's like a penalty when Ward-Prowse gets a free kick on the edge. You would actually bring him on, wouldn't you? Like if I was a manager, it's a 60th, 70th minute, we're 1-0 down, and you get a free kick. I'm like, James, come on, son, pop your boots on. He's that good at him. He's unbelievable. Sam, adding to my point I was making there. Don't want Mount at my club. Make sure you smash a like on the video, by the way. Subscribe to the channel. And if you want to become a member, a Real Red Ultra, we call it now, actually, for exclusive content, you get a badge next to your name and you get a chance to feature on the show. It's just click join next to where the notification bell is. Turn that on as well so you don't miss a thing. Because tomorrow there's a deadline for the second bid. And it has to be for the club, of course, the ownership situation, which has to be before 9 p.m. tomorrow. So we will be live tomorrow night discussing that. We've already had some news bubbling up already today about potential, Sheikh Jassim's going to overpay. So Jim Ratcliffe won't back down and it's all heating up. So it'll be a big, big topic tomorrow night. And we're definitely going to be live for that. So make sure you tune in for that. Please do smash a like on the video as well because it helps for people who are searching for content. And if you show that you like the content, other people might like it as well and so on and so forth. You know the gist. You know how it works. Tommy saying, not sure I actually agree with myself there. Just seems realistic, affordable, and improves us. Yeah, again, I take your thing. Fingers crossed you and Sam get tickets for the semi-final. I mean, struggle. Any tickets for Wembley? We had a look at the Carabao Cup. Struggle. Absolute struggle. If there's any people who we've had on before, like obviously we've had Jay Motti on, we've had Jonathan Schrager, and there's a couple more things we're working on at the minute. We might drop them a little message to say, can you sort us out? Can you do anything? Let's see. Still think with Declan Rice. I think that Declan Rice boat was stayed and then left when Ollie went. Ollie was very Brexit FC kind of thing. It won't surprise me. Here's an outside shout that no one's mentioned yet. It won't surprise me if Newcastle manage to get Champions League, they go in for him because they're looking at Scott McTominay now. They need to revamp their midfield. And tell you what, Newcastle, you can have Donny and McTominay for a cut price of 50, 60 million. There you go, sorted. But they want to revamp their midfield. I won't be surprised if Declan Rice is someone they look at. Eddie Howe, very similar to Solskjaer. He likes that kind of British signing. Um, Kim, Osimhen, De Jong, and keep Sabitzer. I like that. We may need a goalkeeper if De Gea doesn't re-sign. Well, yeah, that contract situation is interesting, isn't it? With David De Gea, what happens? Do you keep him because he's unbelievable shot stopping, which we saw in the last game against Fulham, or do you get rid of him because of his dreadful distribution, claiming of the box, which we saw in Barcelona? What do you do with David De Gea? I suppose that's a show for a different day, innit? But it's fascinating. The contract situation we've got in a minute. We've got Diego Dallo, who's still yet to sign. I think his form dipped a little bit on it since Wan-Bissaka's took his spot. You got David De Gea, who, you know, is it's a flip of a coin. I don't know what the fuck's going on with him. I don't know if I want. Again, it's another one that I'm on the fence with. That's what makes the summer so interesting to see how it gets managed. And because we've sent scouts to watch Diogo Costa, it's well known. We've sent scouts consistently every month, week, whatever it is, to Porto to watch him. So there's something in it. Ten Hag obviously wants a keeper who can play that role. It's not really great if you come out mid-season and say, yeah, we are looking for a goalkeeper or we are looking for alternatives. Then what does the keeper think then? The keeper loses confidence, starts letting in a few more goals. Like, you just have to say, like, no, David's our number one. And then you really, really discuss it in the summer. Because I think he's reached De Gea's reached his limitations in terms of what he can do on the ball. I mean, you can always get better slightly in different percentages and stuff, but I think he's reached his limitations. So do you then risk it? And then you kind of go against your principles and how you want to play? I can't see Ten Hag doing that. So the keeper situation could be something they address. But again, Diogo Costa, he signed a new contract a couple months ago where his release clause is now 70 million. So are you going to go spend 70 million on a keeper, 100 million on a striker, 70 million on a midfielder? Like, it's just not realistic. I can't see it happening. So you're going to have to pick and choose, essentially, which, yeah, is something United have done before. TS7, Tommy again saying, I like the idea of that Kim from Napoli as well. Heard good things. Yeah, Kim looks like a good player. I haven't watched him a lot, to be honest. I have to be completely honest with you. I don't watch Italian football because I think it's just, I think it's shit, to be honest. Napoli have been an exception. I think they're 20 points ahead in the league. But overall, I don't really watch Italian football because I think it's slow, very defensive, very boring. But the two players at Napoli, Kurichevsky, I think his name, that's definitely not his name, but you'll know who I mean. Georgian winger, been unbelievable, and Osimhen as well has been lighting it up for him. And they've obviously got a few other good players at Napoli. I'm not discrediting them. But yeah, maybe that's something I need to do. I need to go watch him a little bit more and go on a bit of a scouting mission, if you will. So yeah, fascinating heading into the summer. Like we said, with the ownership situation tomorrow, we will be live for that because there's definitely going to be some big breaking news. We want to see how much money these people who want to buy the club are going to spend. So Jim Ratcliffe, 8 other people interested apparently. Our minority one's going to put up. I don't know. We just don't know what's going to happen, do you? So I'm sure we'll find out tomorrow and we'll be live as it's going on because it's really, really interesting. In regards to guests, I touched on it before. Like I said, we've had some great guests on here so far. We've had Jay Motty from Stretford Paddock on here. We've had Jonathan Schreiger, who's a very well-respected journalist around the United scene and the MMA community as well. And we get more chance to interview these guys and speak to these people if people like yourself who watch, comment, like, share it to your friends, all that kind of jazz. Honestly, it really, really helps. Anyone who does YouTube, social media, and they know interaction is just gold for us because it helps us promote the channel. It helps us speak to people. It helps us become more informative. And the viewers who are watching, we've got someone like, like we've had on Jay Motty, Jonathan Schreiger, who's kind of a little bit ITK. They can give us information like on transfers, little things like that. Yeah. So again, thank you to the community. Thank you to everyone who tunes in every single day because I know who you are and you've been doing it for a long, long minute, hot minute now, should I say. Follow us on socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We've got TikTok back up and running now. So yeah, we're looking good on that side of things. So go follow the TikTok again if you haven't already. We'll start doing lives on that once we reach 1,000 followers, which is getting closer and closer. And yeah, big up to everyone. Come and join us live tomorrow. Make sure you turn on that notification bell because it's going to go off. It is going to go off. Dave with a comment saying we need a new goalie anyway, Sam. I love him so much, but it's time to let him be number 2 at most. Wow, we need Costa or if not Raya, and United are scouting him. Damn, Dave coming in and dropping absolute bombshells on the show. Again, I appreciate all your opinions, some diverse opinions on there. Yeah, really like it. But I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. So, again, subscribe to the channel, smash a like on the video, and let us know your thoughts. Drop us a DM, leave comments on the show. And, yeah, see you in the next one, I suppose. Take care of yourselves. Have a lovely day. My name's Nick. Peace.